From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts.
Wouldn't it make sense that we fundamentally built into a healthcare plan and policies that encourages prevention, encourages well-being? Movement is medicine. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Welcome to Community Catalysts. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman. In every community, there are leaders who step forward, not simply to oversee systems, but to strengthen the conditions that allow people to thrive. In our schools, that often begins with a simple but profound question. Are we creating environments where students are healthy enough and supported enough and grounded enough to truly learn? This podcast is for leaders who understand that public service is not only about governance, it's about well-being, it's about opportunity, and it's about recognizing that the health of a community is shaped by the health of its people. My guest today is Marty Cho, a former trustee on the Jefferson Union High School District Board in Daly City, California. Originally from Cameroon, he came to the United States to pursue higher education, earning a master's degree in nursing and becoming a board-certified family nurse practitioner. Alongside his clinical work, he's also an entrepreneur and community advocate with a clear focus on strengthening student health and wellness. At the heart of Marty's philosophy is a simple conviction: healthy bodies and healthy minds build healthier communities. I am looking forward to learning how that belief shapes his approach to public leadership. Marty Cho, welcome to Community Catalysts.
So honored to be here. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to this amazing conversation.
Well, I'm so grateful to you being here. Marty, when I read your bio, I'm just noticed that it compresses a life into what was really like a very efficient sentence. It says something like, you're originally from Cameroon and you came to the US to pursue higher education. I imagine that there's a lot that went on between the beginning of that sentence and the end of the sentence. So before we talk about governance, could you share a bit about your family, your life in Cameroon? What brought you to the US in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I kind of was born in a very large family in Cameroon. And you kind of just figure out your own path. Especially growing up in a society where the common expression in Cameroon is, a child is raised by the village. It takes a village to raise the child, right? And so to me, that sense of community, yes, existed at a nuclear level, but education and going to school was probably the one place where I felt like I really, truly belonged. And so from the very beginning, my mother instilled in me education is the key to success. She literally would say that phrase to me, and always reminded me that knowledge is power, and knowledge and how much knowledge you gain is the only thing that you truly can say it's yours. Like even if you die tomorrow, that's the only thing, the one thing that you truly take with you when you're gone, unless you pass that on, you educate people, you foster other people to learn what you know and so forth. So yeah, kind of growing in that environment was really powerful. I finished high school. By then I had family in the US, and at that point I really was the first one in my immediate family that was able to start like the way we have schools in Cameroon is primary school is not the same system like we have in the US, right? We have grades. We have primary school, secondary school, and high school. And after high school, you go to university. So after high school, then I have family that already lived here in the US, and it was pretty much like, hey, this kid seems to have some potential here. Let's, see where the potential goes. And so yeah, my mom was like, I can't deny this opportunity for you. Why not pursue it? And so then I moved to the first state in America, and I'm going to leave that there. So if you're listening, they can kind of guess what's the first state. That's the first lesson of education, right? Yeah, and long before I know it, I just came in and was like, okay, well, education, this is it. I have to pursue this and really hunker down and understand, first of all, how the system works here, and then what is it that I want to pursue in my career going forward.
Let me make sure I understand. You're giving credit to your mom for the earliest leadership skills that you learned, and that leadership skill was all about knowledge.
Yes, 110%. And I would leave with saying, as not just credit, but also, kind of an honor to her memory. I lost my mom at a very young age. So literally right after high school, that didn't take very long. That's kind of like the time when she made a decision, like, I'm sick. I don't know how long I'm going to last for. I cannot deny you of this opportunity to pursue a higher education, especially if you're given an opportunity to pursue education in the US. And and that was something that was just paramount and fundamental to me as a young man.
What a gift she gave you.
Indeed. And I would not be who I am today if I didn't have those core beliefs instilled in me at a very, very young age.
When you wanted to study in the US, did you already know what subjects you wanted to study?
Yeah, I knew I liked sciences. At a very young age, I knew I was always curious just about like the way the human body works. I was always curious about the way the human brain works, not just the physical brain itself, but just the way, I'm going to get a little bit meta here, but the way the physical body and the non-physical body kind of coexist together, the spiritual self and the physical self. How does your brain connect synapses to create thought, for example? Right. So those are the things that I found myself sleeping at night thinking about, like, okay, I have to understand this. And when I really set my mind to understand something, it's almost like I get hyper focused. And I might actually add a little caveat on that. Not officially diagnosed, but being in healthcare, I do have suspicions of being neurodivergent. Partially, I have some symptoms of ADHD. And so one of the symptoms of ADHD is hyperfocus, especially on a subject matter that is of interest to that individual, right? And so to me, healthcare or sciences was just something that I was just like, oh, this is fascinating. I'm going to just go all in, right? But you throw me in a history lesson, I'm like, oh, man. No shade to people that like history, but I struggled. I struggled with history classes. I struggled with literature. It just didn't make sense to me. I liked things that were physical. I could explain it. I can write equations. I can extrapolate. I can calculate and things like that.
Can you draw a connection for me between an interest in leadership and also an interest in, I guess, what you would describe as the mind-body connection?
Yes. I would say the biggest connection I can find is emotional intelligence, because to me, leadership means understanding where every individual is coming from and that moment that you have to be a leader. How am I presenting into this situation? How are you presenting in this situation? Which means if I'm coming into a conversation with somebody that I disagree with and I'm already heated up, it's likely not going to be a very fruitful conversation, right? And that takes a level of emotional intelligence. Now, how do you truly develop emotional intelligence? That's where the mind-body connection really comes in, right? I have to really be able to ascertain that right now, if I'm stressed, my heart rate is going to go up. My glucose intake is probably going to go up, which means if I don't have enough food in my stomach, then I'm having to rely on like reserves. So my body is having to work extra just to give me the sugar that I need for my brain. That's the physical side of it, right? Then now you talk about the emotional side of it. Okay, which hormones are being released? Stress hormones, cortisol levels go up, right? And so now I can understand, if I understand physically that, okay, I'm presenting into the situation, it's probably going to be a little bit stressful. This is what's happening in my body physically. Understanding that side of it, now I'm like, oh, okay, this is why I feel stressed going into this conversation, right? So now I can be like, oh, okay, how do I now reduce my heart rate? How do I keep my blood sugar from going too high, right? And so really taking care of the physical needs first, I strongly believe converts to the mental state, which then correlates directly to how I present to a situation that leads to leadership.
That was quite a lesson there. And I have to say, I have always struggled with the concept of emotional intelligence. as if it were something that was kind of inborn and intuitive.
Mhm.
And the idea was that somehow there are just people who are better at reading the emotional state of other people. But
Yeah,
if you're not born with that ability, your likelihood of developing it is really low. You're actually taking that in a rather different direction, aren't you?
absolutely. And, emotional intelligence is not this like far-fetched mystery. There are actually some studies out there that have actually come up with frameworks around this. You can actually look it up. It's called the emotions wheel, emotional wheel. And it breaks down different emotions. And you essentially can look up in a moment in time and say, okay, what am I feeling right now? And I think people tend to forget that anger is an emotion, happiness is an emotion. And we tend to only really hyper focus on the good emotions and we want to feel good all the time. But the reality is that's just not attainable. It's okay that sometimes you will feel, desolate, you'll feel abandoned, you'll feel fragile, you'll feel, lonely, you'll feel bored, you'll feel anger, you'll feel embarrassed, right? These are all core emotions. And that's what I mean by emotional intelligence. It's just being able in that moment in time to really being honest with yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, just being honest with yourself and say, what am I feeling right now? Before I go into this conversation, before I pick up this call, what am I feeling? Research shows that just by taking that moment to recognize and name that emotion, you are actually automatically presenting in that situation in a much more higher intelligent, emotional intelligent level than the person that is not, right? Case in point, jealousy, for example, is one of the most unspoken of emotion that people think, oh, if I'm feeling jealous, then that's a sign of weakness. It's actually not. It's actually a very, very mature thing to be able to name that specific emotion that you're feeling and then say, okay, that's fine. It's just an emotion. It's going to pass.
Marty, I really want to dive deep into the question of emotional intelligence, but you bring a lot of substance to it. Let me ask you about some of those pieces. First off, tell us about your educational background and what you've learned from being a nurse practitioner.
Absolutely. So, from an educational background, moving to the US was a major cultural shock, right? I came from a system that was very different from the US system. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we had our systems was very broken down into subsections. So you had class one, class two, class three, which I think is equivalent like first grade, second grade, or pre-K here, which I've also now come to learn is very closely similar, but you just name differently and the ages are different, right? But I didn't know that when I first moved here. When I moved here, I had graduated high school. One of the biggest challenges was just understanding, okay, what do I need to be able to go to college here? Well, it was a big challenge applying for grants, for one, because most of grants, they will ask, well, where did you go to high school? And if you did not have a high school address that was already in the system in the US, it didn't register, which means you could not progress to the next phase of the application. So then the question became, well, do I go back and get a GED or do I go back and get to a community college? Somehow was able to network with other people that already moved here. Like, oh, actually, no, don't do that. Just go to a community college, submit your transcripts. There are organizations that would actually can convert your transcript into a grade level and then kind of translate that to the US system and see where you actually fall in the grading system in the US.
Hmm.
Lo and behold, I found out that my high school courses in Cameroon were actually the equivalent of like college classes in the US. And so I didn't have to go to high school and get a GED. So those classes, I was actually able to transfer them to a community college system. Did about 2.5 years of community college as a nurse, as a registered nurse. Finished that, then got my first job working as a registered nurse in a med surg floor and an ICU. But somehow I always just knew that that was the stepping stone that I needed, was just understanding how the system worked. Once I got plugged in, put my head down, studied hard, got that first job, made sure I sort employment from employers that fostered and encouraged education, right? And so my first job as a nurse was at University of Virginia. And I remember vividly one of the key things at this time I lived in Delaware, actually.
The first state. I knew that Delaware was the first state.
See, good. This would be where later on we can come back and say, "Ooh, did you guess what the first state was?" And I took this job in Virginia because one of the key leading things from the job offer, like, hey, we do offer tuition reimbursement. And so, lo and behold, as I mentioned earlier, because I couldn't get financial aid, most of my courses, most of my education was paid out of pocket, which means I couldn't finish school in the traditional length of time that most students will in this country. And I think that's something that's such a shock to immigrant students, so students that come here for the first time. If you don't know that, you can easily get lost in the system. And so I went down to Virginia. Within 6 months, I was eligible for those benefits. Immediately re-enrolled for a bachelor's program with the University of Delaware. They essentially had a hybrid program. This was like way before hybrid or remote classes or remote work became a thing. And I lived close enough to Delaware that I could drive up to campus maybe once or twice a week. And then the rest of my courses, I could do them remotely. But again, I always knew, okay, this was just the next thing. Okay, associate's degree, then I'm going to go get my bachelor's. And then after the bachelor's, I have to get, it was always I have to get the next thing.
Right.
And so just step after step, was able to get the funding, took those classes, got my bachelor's, then decided to do some travel nursing, actually, just to see the country. Because at this point, again, I'd only live on the East Coast. So I'm like, well, I want to see what the rest of the country has to offer. I'm not sure if your audience are quite familiar with travel nurses, but I think education also has like travel teachers. And so I just took roles across the country, including Texas. That's how I actually ended up in California. After those contracts ended, I slowly started to realize, like, okay, I understand the role of nursing, like at the bedside, and I really enjoy that, but there's more. I want more. I want to understand at the higher level, how does this actually translate into the community, into society? How do I really make an impact at the scale that I want to make? Because again, one of my biggest fears in life is unfulfilled potential. I knew, especially after leaving Cameroon, the circumstances that I was in and coming here, and every step and every accomplishment I've had was just a testament of what I know my potential is.
So was the next step for you, Marty, to, on top of your nursing, to also become an entrepreneur?
110%. Again, credit to my mom. When I was growing up, my mom didn't work a traditional 9-to-5 job. She was always owning or running some kind of small business, right? And so she would literally be like, okay, we bought this for this price. This is it. So
right, this is entrepreneurship, but you could also say this is what it means to hustle. We're going to create our opportunities. So cut to the part of this in which you become the founder of a wellness company. What is that company and what does it do?
Essentially, Mechi is a movement as medicine platform. It was so paramount after about a decade and a half in healthcare to really dial down one lifestyle intervention that we know pretty much has a positive outcome for almost any disease process on the planet. There's one intervention that every journal, every medication that's put out there will literally go, this medication will do this and this and this. Diet and exercise would improve it. Of all those, movement was one of the most consistent intervention.
So the line is movement is medicine.
Movement as medicine, yes. And so that is literally what the epitome of Mechi is all about. And I came to that realization after, again, working in healthcare for about a decade and a half. And it really dawned on me that we were doing things in reverse. Einstein said it correctly. We were doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome, which is, let's wait for you to have diabetes. Let's wait for you to be obese. Let's wait for you to have hypertension. Oh, and in see me in clinic, I'm going to start you on all these hypertension drugs, diabetes drug, or cholesterol lowering drugs. Then at that point, I'm going to tell you, oh, by the way, you need to exercise. Then immediately, a patient's here, I need to exercise, and they hear, oh, I got to join a gym, I got to get a personal trainer. And the whole premise of Mechi is, no, you don't. No, you do not. And we say, pick a hobby that gets you moving. Even if you're wheelchair bound, There are so many hobbies you can do in a wheelchair. Pick a hobby, stick to that hobby once or twice a week, or even 3 times if you really have the flexibility for it. That's it. Just do it for about 20 to 30 minutes or an hour. If you can do it 3 hours a week, that's the movement we're looking for. And that's where Mechi really dials in.
So you are the CEO and founder of your company, Mechi. You are also, are you still a practicing nurse practitioner? You're still doing that work as well?
Yes.
On top of all of that, there came a time where you said, I think I should run for the school board.
Yes.
What was that moment about?
It's a really great question. I actually ended up on the school board, not like the conventional way that most people do, as in like, I'm going to put my name on a ballot, I'm going to run for it. No, I actually got on a school board because the city of Daly City had an opening on the city council. And because I had my business registered in Daly City at the time, they had my contact information. And so an email blast was just sent out like, hey, there's an open seat in the city council. Citizens are welcome to apply. So I'm like, why the hell? Why not? So I submit an application. And then next thing I know, 2 weeks out, okay, there will be interviews for this role. You're welcome to, come into city hall for interviews. So I'm thinking it's going to be a one-on-one. I'm going to sit down with like maybe the mayor and other council members. Oh no, I showed up and it's a full forum. It's a
wow, a whole audience there waiting to hear you.
With other people that also apply that are basically going to be, standing and answering these questions from the board. Lo and behold, the president of the school board at the time was watching this meeting and immediately sent me an email like, hey, I actually think you should consider sitting on our school board. I think you'd be a really good fit, and your background really will be encouraging and inspiring to our students and the community and the students population that we serve. And honestly, that's when the whole school board thing was born from. I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. But now that you say that, I actually really would like that more. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So went down to a county office, put my name down and say, okay, let's go. And then if somebody challenges them, we'll have to run a formal campaign at that point. And August came or September came and I didn't get in a position. So next thing I know, I'm getting sworn in.
So you were unopposed, having volunteered to run in an election. What an easy path to get there.
That's what I heard.
Marty, so the people who are listening to this podcast, I hope, are local leaders in their own communities. They're serving on school boards and city councils and on county boards of supervisors. Yes. What would you say to them based on this whole blend of experience that you bring? What would you say to them is their opportunity or their responsibility to bring your philosophy of movement as medicine into their communities, to not just to make people healthier, but also to bring a quality of wellness to the act of governance?
Oh man, that question just gave me chills. It's literally was one of the main motivations of me seeking a role or really pursuing this role in governance, is really understanding, okay, ultimately it comes down to numbers. It really comes down to money. Do we have the budget for this? Can we give a raise? Can we do something really cool and unique? And I'm going to brag, even though I wasn't on the school board at the time when this project was initiated, but Jefferson Union High School did something absolutely incredible that I think is actually being adopted throughout the rest of the state. And in CSBA 2024, they actually got an award for this. And it was a teacher's housing project where they built 21st century updated high-tech housing at an affordable price, really taking into account that teachers need to at first feel that sense of safety and be able to get good rest, which I think you're starting to see where I'm going with this, how that all leads down to burnout. And for the people that listen to this in leadership and say, well, how does this all come down to numbers? Okay, let's start with the first one. Replacing a teacher can cost a district between $10,000 and $20,000 per vacancy. Now, we know, based on just CDC data, that chronic disease accounts for approximately 75% of U.S. healthcare costs. Who pays for health insurance for these teachers? The district does, right? Wouldn't it make sense that we fundamentally built into a healthcare plan and policies that encourages prevention, encourages well-being? Movement is medicine. I cannot emphasize that enough. There's enough research that shows that just about 20 to 30 minutes of brisk walking. I'm not talking running. I'm not talking jogging. Brisk walking is about the equivalent of 20 milligrams of Wellbutrin. And for the listeners that don't know what Wellbutrin is, it's an antidepressant drug. Okay? And so to me, if I have the option to say, okay, I'm going to give you that one day off a week, or maybe give you a shorter day during your week so you put in movement so you don't end up on a prescription drug that is going to cost the hair plan tons of money. It's going to probably need you to get a psychiatrist to prescribe it. You're probably going to need a therapist to manage all this. That 4 hours that I give you off during the week to go move might seem like a lot, but just pause for a second and see how much money we have saved as a district down the road in healthcare cost.
Your advice to local leaders is this doesn't have to be about lifestyle change or ideology or philosophy or anything. You're saying this starts with bottom line impact. You can actually calculate the cost savings and the cost benefit ratio of attention to the physical needs of the people who you are responsible for.
Absolutely. 110%. And again, humble brag with the Jefferson Union High School. One of the things I really enjoyed that I saw being on the board was the reliance on data. Data, again, for my math nerds out there, numbers don't lie. It really comes down to the numbers. So from approving a project that would help like students with like anxiety levels or absenteeism, we made sure that we track those numbers and how did those numbers correlate with students' performance? How did they correlate with the rate of students graduating? How did it correlate with students that are actually getting accepted into colleges? Case in point, where we are fitting into this whole platform, again, just step back now and talk a little bit about how Mechi supports faculty and staff, is we're not saying have the teacher leave school, go somewhere else. No, they already have 70 to 80% of the resources they need. They already have other teachers on campus that will be more than willing to take that 30, 20-minute early day end to go meet in the gym and play basketball and play pickleball with each other. And even better, this is where the caveat lies. I actually want the teachers and the students to operate with each other at that playing field. Not as athletes, not as achievers, just play. Where you say, well, just be yourself, just be human. Just take those 30 minutes and let go. And we say, let's do it in an organized fashion. Let's make it be consistent. So there's now that student that was maybe wondering, do I have a friend at school? Do I have anybody that really cares about me? What's the point of all of this? Which we also know, those are all now early signs of depression. Now suddenly feels like, I actually am looking forward to Thursday to going to school on Thursdays, because after Thursdays, man, I can't wait to play dodgeball with my math teacher. That dodgeball coming at the math teacher, that's an opportunity that math teacher, that physics teacher can pause and say, hey, by the way, Tim, do you understand how this ball gets to me? It's an opportunity to educate that child in a different setting and an environment that's probably much more easier for them to ingest and understand that information that's sitting at a desk and try to understand the square root of 44. That's where Mechi really is thinking outside the box about healthcare, community, movement is medicine, not just for the physical mind, not just for the physical body, the mind, the community as a whole.
Marty, we're approaching the end, and I could talk to you for hours about this. First off, I got to say, I really hope that you're writing a book sometime soon, because Well, now that you have all this extra free time, you can be a nurse and an entrepreneur, a former school board member, but there's a book in here somewhere, and I really look forward to reading it. I am just I'm sitting here and my brain is spinning because now I understand what you told me in the introduction and what I said earlier, that your conviction is about this connection between healthy bodies, healthy minds, and how they build healthier communities. And you're making it very real to me in a way that I've just never quite appreciated before. And if I could just ask you just one more time, just to make sure I got it. What I think I'm hearing you say is that if we want to have a healthy society, if we want to be together, that it starts with physicality. Even before we get into our minds and our intentions and our belief systems, our physical ability to connect with each other and to use that to understand how our physicality, our nutrition, our exercise, our movement, how that affects our brains influences how we connect with each other, right? This is all dawning on me as all interconnected in a way that I didn't quite get before we sat down for this conversation. Am I getting it? Is there even more to it that I need to understand?
I say you got it 100%, and I'll even take it an even step further and say 110% side of this is this. If you break it down to the quantum level, there's matter and energy, right? If we really go down to the molecular level. Now, step back and take the same concept to society. Humans, people, we are just these particles that are existing in this plethora of space. That's planet Earth. If we are far apart from each other, we are not making much of an impact, are we? But particles collide and things happen. That little moment on a chord, that little moment that I give you a high five because we scored a goal together, that little moment that we bump shoulders, in that moment, you're not my superintendent. You're not my principal. You're not the student that skipped class 6 times last week. You're just another person. And that's the fundamental level that we really need to start from. And if we built from there and really understand, not doing it because my family told me so or my doctor told me so, do it because how it makes you feel. When I'm on that chord, I'm not looking at my messages. I'm not calling anybody. I'm not responding to emails and things like that. I know for myself, personally speaking, I play soccer once a week. Every Sunday, it's blocked out in the family calendar. My wife knows it. My friends know it. Everybody knows between 5 to 7 on Sundays, that's my soccer time. And in those times, I know if I skip soccer one week, my mood is different on Monday, on Tuesday. That's the same concept. That dawned on me when I realized, wait a minute, I noticed this within myself. And if I noticed it within myself, I wonder if this person noticed it about themselves. So I started talking to other people I play soccer with. And immediately they started, oh, no. I look forward to this every Sunday. And it's like the highlight of my weekend. I can't wait to come out and just let go. Let's just let go and just find that one thing that gets us to that point where we are completely present and enjoy the company of each other.
Marty Cho, it's been wonderful talking to you. It has been mind expanding talking to you. I am so grateful for the education. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you for having me. And it was really, 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 really awesome. And, just got some chills as listening to some of these questions. I'm like, oh man, I've never really thought of a way to really articulate the why behind it, but having somebody from just another perspective really articulate the question in that way, make the responses more realistic in a way, right? Like sometimes I just did things without really stopping and really appreciating the why behind it. So, hearing this and just having this conversation with has been absolutely rewarding personally.
I'm truly grateful. My thanks again to Marty Cho for such a thoughtful conversation. What stays with me is the reminder that leadership doesn't begin at the dais. It begins in the values that we absorb early in life, in the risks that we take when we step into unfamiliar places, and in the daily discipline of treating people with care and dignity especially when decisions are hard. And to be honest, I am going to repeating his mantra, movement as medicine, for a long, long time. Whether you serve on a school board, a city council, a county commission, or in a civic organization, the principle holds. When people feel safe and supported and respected, better decisions follow. Strong institutions are built on human well-being. His dedication also speaks to something many local leaders quietly carry: the pressure to do more and move faster and fix everything at once. Sometimes leadership is the discipline of doing your best today and trusting that consistent effort builds lasting strength. Healthy people, healthy institutions, healthier communities. Hey, if this conversation sparked an idea, raised a question, or got you thinking about your own leadership, I'd love to hear from you. Call me at 602-688-2724 and leave a message. Ask a question, share a reflection, or suggest a topic you'd like to hear explored next. I listen to every message, and your input genuinely helps shape future episodes. And if you'd be open to sharing some of the hard-earned lessons from your own leadership journey, I invite you to apply to be a guest. You'll find the podcast guest link in the show notes. Your story may help another leader see their own work more clearly as they serve their community. Hey, if you believe that our system of government depends on people staying in conversation, especially when it's hard, I invite you to join me on Substack. You'll find my column, Democracy Runs on Dialogue, linked in the program notes. Community Catalysts is edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst. You're my last meeting of the day, and
Yes.
I have been in nonstop meetings all week.
Yes.
So I'm going to eat a quick lunch, and then I'm going out and taking a long walk. So I need it, and I will be thinking about you while I'm doing it.
That's it. Now, do me a favor. If you have a social media account or whatever, on Instagram, LinkedIn, take a selfie on that walk and post it and write the hashtag, I had a Mechi moment today. A Mechi moment is literally what we're saying. That little moment where you forgot everything, you paused, you walked, you jogged for yourself. Not because anybody else told you, but just because deep down there was that little moment, you're like, you know what? Yes, I'm gonna enjoy this walk today.
I had a Mechi moment today.
Yes. Perfect.
I will do that.
Perfect.